Hello everybody, today we're going to answer the question, what is Driftland The Magic Revival? Driftland is an RTS game where 4 races fight for control of islands and their strategic resources. The islands are floating around in the upper atmosphere of a planet and can be pushed and pulled around with magic, hence the name of the game. The game has been in early access on Steam for around 8 months and currently has a playable skirmish mode versus the AI, with campaign and multiplayer to be added later this year. While it might sound a little light on the content side of things, what's there is really polished and it does play very well, and the game is pretty cheap, weighing in at under $20. As I mentioned, there's 4 races, the humans, dwarfs, wild elves, and dark elves, and they each come with their own unique buildings and units, which I'll touch on a bit later. So let's delve into the game mechanics of Driftland. You always start with one island under your control and a castle on that island. This is your capital building. If this gets destroyed, you lose the game. You can never build a second one, or get a chance to recover. Once it's gone, it's GG. Castles can produce explorers. These are units that will explore islands and uncover any treasures and resources. Now, unlike most traditional RTS games, in Driftland you don't directly control the units at your disposal. They have free will, so to speak, meaning that they'll kinda do what they want and go where they're needed. To get them to do something, you can assign a task for some gold, and then increase the bounty on that task over and over, spending more and more gold until someone takes the job. This was a pretty weird system to me at first, and I'm a little divided on it still, but essentially it means you have to spend gold to get what you want done fast. Placing attack orders on foreign lands can cost quite a bit if you want everyone to join the attack, so it's kind of interesting that your economy also has an effect on what orders you can give. Economy is the biggest part of the game. Without direct unit control, you spend a lot of your time building and managing your economy, assigning and reassigning workers to different projects. So to get an idea of how things are managed, let's talk about each resource. On the left side of the UI, we have everything to do with population, the population count, the maximum housing they can have, the food they consume, and the gold they produce. There's a handful of rules that govern how the economy works. The first is the bigger the population, the more food required to sustain them. The second is those who don't work generate gold. The third is that all buildings and units require gold to maintain. So at the very least, you have to balance how many workers are working food to keep food coming in, and not working to keep gold coming in to sustain buildings and units. It can be a pretty tricky little balancing act in the beginning of the game, but you're given a very flexible assigning and reassigning tool to dynamically shift workers around instantly to balance your economy. Now, as you begin to grow, you'll also want other resources and will have to shift workers onto them. There are 7 other resources: mana, which I'll touch on last, wood and stone, which is used for building, coal and steel, which is mostly used for upgrades, and diamond and ruby, which is used for special units. These 7 resources are finite in Driftlands. You'll use up the resources on an island, and when the resource is completely done, the worker building dismantles itself and the workers return to the population pool. Food and population are infinite though, so as long as you have houses and farms to work. That's the basics of the economy. In order to set up a good economy, you'll need to build efficiently. Now, the building aspect is pretty interesting. You can place buildings anywhere on islands, but space is obviously finite, and resources take up space on each island, whether you're gathering them or not. Once an island has no more resources, it's a good idea to redevelop it by placing military buildings or farms on it. And outer islands need more defenses to keep away patrolling enemies and random barbarians. The last aspect of building is the castle itself. This is your main point of progression. Build up the resources to fortify and upgrade this, and that allows you to then upgrade to the next tier for all other buildings. So much like an Age of Empires type game, you should constantly be pushing to get to the next tier of castle as quickly as possible. It allows further development of all buildings and increases your magical range. And that leads us nicely into magic. Each race has their own set of magical abilities, some with crossovers and some unique to their race. Generally though, each race can use the same island-centered magic abilities. By building up enough mana, you can push and pull islands around with spells in order to bring them close to yours and establish bridges, locking them down as your own. You can build teleport gates that allow you to island hop, but they degenerate over time, so typically building bridges is the best way to get islands under your rule safely. Now, as well as that, magic allows you to terraform islands and even create brand new ones. Some of these spells require an active mage on the ground, such as for terraforming or destroying an island. A fun tactic I found is to keep up the pressure on an island with heavy bounties for attack and use mages to try and destroy it. It can take a very long time, so you'll need heal spells to keep the mages from dying or fleeing. I tried it once and it went well enough, though I did end up killing some of my own allies with the powerful explosion. Not sure if island destruction is ever really necessary. The dwarfs have a powerful spell that actually causes an earthquake, damaging all buildings on the island, which I feel is a really better alternative than total annihilation. Magic is also limited in reach by your castle. The more you've upgraded your castle, the further your magic will work, else you'll be restricted to just using aerial units to reach faraway areas. For most races, these units are very high tier and require finding wild birds to tame, and then a unit with high enough rank will mount it automatically. They typically require a ruby to create, and if the enemy get them early on, they can be kind of hard to fend off. Typically, spells and magic is their best counter, I've found, until you get your own. The final aspect to discuss is reputation and progress points. Driftlands has a few PvE aspects to the game. You have roaming eagles, treasures, barbarian camps, and more mysteries lie around islands waiting to be discovered. Exploring and attacking these places net you progress points, and usually some form of treasure, so they are worth doing. Progress points are put into a tech tree between economy, warfare, and magic, and basically just buff you up over time as you perform actions. While it's a relatively simple and useful tech tree, it does favour those who are doing well already, so I could see it as being a bit of a steamroll, which is often felt like for me. There's also reputation, which I sort of had a hard time understanding. Essentially, as long as you keep on top of your economy, then your people will give you good reputation, allowing for a higher gold yield and faster population growth. Sounds pretty straightforward, but for some reason I had an overcrowding debuff for a while, even though I had empty houses, so I just wasn't sure what was causing that necessarily. Now, if this reputation gets low enough, or something in your economy goes bad, you can have mini rebellions where workers come out of houses and attack nearby units and buildings. It's never been much of a threat for me, but it's something you'll want to keep on top of. So that's basically it for all the mechanics of Driftland as it stands right now. You can play with up to 5 other AI in skirmish and set a few different rules for the game, but I'm looking forward to seeing how multiplayer will hold up when it gets introduced. I think it'll just be a really fun game to play with friends, and games can last quite a while, with a lot of mine taking at least 90 minutes. As I did mention in the beginning, the game is very polished. It looks and runs great, it has neat new ideas, and I think this game just deserves a lot more attention. With only the AI to battle right now, it's hard to say whether the island mechanics are truly being used to their full potential. I feel like stealing islands away from the enemy and connecting them to your land should happen more, but it's very rare that you do that. Technologies feel pretty one-dimensional. I would rather see the player dedicating scientists to boost research so it actually feeds off of the economy, allowing players to potentially build tall, so to speak. Either way, the game has been very fun so far, and when multiplayer drops, I'm hoping we can get a few members of the Republic in to play a few games on Twitch. I think with players looking to target farm islands or a few key buildings, you can really destabilize an economy. Something I didn't mention is that there are buff buildings that increase production by 10% of a given resource, so targeting those and wiping out a few of them could tank your enemy's economy. And unfortunately, I just never saw the AI making any plays like that. Not to say the AI is bad, just that I feel there's more potential in there for deeper strategies. That's it for my early impressions on Driftland The Magic Revival. Let me know what you think about the game and the video in the comments below. Do you think you might be picking it up? I for one just think it deserves a little bit more attention, as not many people know about it. If you want to support the channel and keep it going, check me out on Patreon. The support there is what's keeping me going. I'll probably keep mentioning that $1 there is the equivalent to around 1,200 views for me, so you can have a really big impact on this channel, and currently ad revenue makes up about 10% of my income, with the rest being fan funding, so thank you for the support. Also check out my Twitch schedule to see when I'm playing these types of games, join our Discord to get involved, and if you have the time, join our Steam group to play with like-minded players. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.